Welcome to the Volk Furs Podcast. I'm your host, Garrett Volk. The fur trade has a rich history dating back to the 1500s. How has it survived, and what is the future? I will take a look at the history of the fur trade, in-depth discussions on various topics pertaining to trapping, fur fashion, interviews with industry experts, and much more. If you are addicted to fur, this is your podcast. Welcome, everybody. It is October 20th, 2023, and I should be out checking traps right now, but I do not have any traps in the ground yet. So I thought we'd do a podcast episode. It's been about a month since we've done the last one, and we are going to be staying on the same path as we did last month with talking about coyotes. So I should be trapping. I'm not. I've been pretty busy sewing some fur, making some hats and stuff like that. So I thought I'd bring on another small business owner that's a crafty person that I'll let him tell you what he does. I got to know him here a couple years ago, buying coyotes and stuff from him, and just kind of stayed in touch over the period of the last couple of years. He moved away, so I kind of kept in touch and said, "Hey, let's get on a podcast and talk about some things." So Joe Knox with Knox Blades, coyote hunter extraordinaire. Welcome to the Volk Furs Podcast.
Hey, Garrett, thanks for having me on this. This is something new for me, and I like to talk about this stuff, and especially to buddies like you that enjoy and love it as much as I do. So thanks again.
Yeah, it's so how have you been? I mean, is it you've been what have you been away now? A year and a half or 2 years or?
Yeah, I left in March of 22, so about a year and a half ago.
A year and a half, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, headed down to Kansas. So down here it's a little warmer,
Yeah, so so my big question is how's the coyote hunt down there versus up here? Is it a little different?
Golly, yeah, it's I'm 3 hours north of my hometown, so I'm from Southwest Oklahoma, and when I moved up there in 2018. In the middle of the winter, it was a shock. Everything up there is so vast and open, and down here, you have true mile sections that have trees, and you can't see very far, and you can pretty much park your vehicle anywhere you want. So, definitely, I wouldn't say easier, but you can hit more spots without driving as far. I think that up in a couple of years up there, I put like 70 something thousand miles on my truck, and I never left the state, just hunting.
Yeah.
So, you can put them on here too, but, I'll set out on a trip, and I may pick a town that's an hour away, and I'll work my way to it and call 10 times,
Okay.
So it's a lot easier to do here, I think, in that aspect.
How's the competition down there for hunting? Is it pretty competitive, or what's it like down there?
I haven't run into anybody like I do up there. I've run into people at Cinex or even restaurants. You can tell what kind of clothes they have on, and they be like, you kind of get eye contact with them and be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Or you see them on the roads. I've yet to see anybody here. This last season, I was out quite a bit. I didn't see anybody that looked like they were calling at all, especially after the first of the year. It's mostly a deer state. Everybody here, they lease property and then hunt deer. So you have the occasional coyote hunters. Rick Pilette, from Lucky Duck, he lives just north of here, probably an hour.
Oh.
So, I mean, he's a big hunter, but he travels around. I haven't run into him yet. I was kind of expected to, not being very far away, but I'm not really sure how often he's actually out, calling.
So I know when you were up here in North Dakota, you did a lot of thermal hunting there towards the end and a lot of night hunting. Is there a thermal night season down in Kansas or?
There is. It's a lot shorter. So up there, it's the weekend after rifle season, if I'm correct.
Yes.
It doesn't start here until January 1st. So that's a full month of, not being able to call during the holidays when you're off work and whatnot. Then it
Right.
ends in March. So it's a fairly short season, but it doesn't get cold here till late either. I mean, today it was 80 something degrees. So
Whoa.
it doesn't even matter. I don't really want to go while there's still bugs and mosquitoes out flying around.
Yeah, we're getting some pretty good wind the last couple days. I we're next week we're supposed to get, I think we might get 4 or 5 inches of snow. That'd be our first snow for the year and our first really cold weather. But it's been like in the 60s, 50s, a couple 40s with like 25, 30 at night, couple nights. I mean, it's been really seasonably nice up here. And I've been hearing lots of people starting to really kill some coyotes up here. I was talking to Yates yesterday, or actually, did you know Calvin Pruitt? Did you know him?
Oh yeah, yeah. Brandon sent me pictures of their loadout that they got this
Yeah, it had like 20
past couple
some
days.
yesterday or something like that. Anyway, they called me up and they said, "Yeah, you killing a bunch of coyotes." And he's like, "Well, we've got like 20 so far or whatever." And they had them packed all on top of Brandon's car and everything. I'm like, that's the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, they it's not like they were killing some pretty good numbers anyway. But I've heard a lot of other people too. So I think there's a lot of coyotes around. Now, what's the coyote population down there? I mean, there's a lot of deer down there, right? So I mean, there's a lot of coyotes too, or
There is, and I feel like there's more, and I don't know if that's true or not. I would say, well, Brandon came with me last year, and I said we're going to kill 20 in one hunt, and we killed 20 in a bobcat uh,
whoa.
in one hunt, and it's more doable here. And I grew up, hunting down here, and uh, I remember being in high school, 16 or 17 years old, going and day calling, with my 243 and my Ed Siri Jackrabbit hand call and killing 8 as a high
Geez.
schooler. I think that has, I was alluding to it earlier, the being able to call more areas closer, and then the hand calls don't go as far. So maybe
Yeah.
there's not as many more. You just have more opportunities to call more if you have the property to go on, that is.
Do you see a lot of bobcat down there then, or in your area, or not really?
I called in. I killed one last year. Take that back. Two. Killed two. Brandon killed one. He got it fully mounted,
Oh,
and
really? Nice.
I probably let 10 go.
Oh, really?
Maybe a couple more. A couple years ago, I said I was never going to shoot another one, just to shoot them. I kind of like watching them, and I
Yeah.
shot a few this year. But I did. I called in quite a bit, and I think seeing them at night, they can't hide. You might be calling them in during the daytime and not know it. But when you're standing up on a tripod, nothing hides. So I was calling them in fairly close, and I would just say boo, scare them off. And a lot of times they don't even run. Bobcats they're different. They're fun to watch, especially at nighttime. Um, just the way they move. They like to travel on the least path of resistance. They'll take a dirt road straight to you if you're standing in a ditch. That's for sure. So
Yeah,
yeah, there's definitely more here.
I've never been around them really. I mean, I guess there's some of the Badlands up here and stuff, and I think a lot of guys, are taking dogs after them and stuff, but um, yeah, they seem like they're really curious, maybe like a cat, like a regular cat, because they are. But it'd be fun to hunt them once in a while just to see if it's different or whatever. But I've heard there can be kind of sneaky too, where all of a sudden they'll just pop out of nowhere and you're kind of,
Oh
but
yeah,
that'd be
I've
kind of
called them
neat.
in before where say I'm sitting on top of a little valley edge or something, and I'd look right and I see something that wasn't there before, and it looks like a fence post, like a corner post, and I'm staring at it, I'm looking at it, I pull my rifle up and it's blending in, and all of a sudden its head turns, and it's a
Oh yeah,
bobcat sitting straight up looking at you, and I'm already 20 minutes in my set about to leave, and all of a
right.
sudden it hunkers down and it disappears and it is walking down below you. It happens pretty fast when they do come in. I've stood up before hunting and had them jump 15 yards from me. Didn't even know I called one in. I was getting up to leave, and they bounce out of there. So
So
yeah,
what?
they hang out around barns, hay bales, where the mice and stuff are. A
Yeah,
lot of
it's
times
those
I'll
big
call off
mulchers.
at distance. Yeah, I'll call off from a distance, and I think then there might be a cat that comes out of there, and especially at nighttime, their bodies they put off a lot of heat because their hair's thinner. So
Oh,
you'll call
sure.
and you'll see one standing up, and you're like, "Oh, that's a big coyote way over there." And you'll take another shorter look at it, and you can tell how they walk. That's a big bobcat,
Huh.
working its way in.
So kind of every person I have on here, I kind of get into the background a little bit of how you got into hunting, and everybody's got a little different story. I mean, especially with predator hunting, it seems. I mean, I don't know. I think maybe this is true for all hunting, but it seems like there's not as many predator hunters there used to be, and it seems like it definitely comes from the family history of chasing predators. Now, deer hunters and bird hunters and stuff. I mean, it's a little easier to get into. If say you're, in high school or in your 20s and you wanted to go deer hunting or bull hunting or pheasant hunting, it might be a little bit easier to have success right away. And maybe it's easier to get into than predator hunting, whether it be trapping or calling coyotes or bobcats or whatever. Um, how did you get into calling coyotes? I mean, was it something you did for a long time, or did you have, grandpa or dad or family that got you into it, or how did you get, getting into predator hunting?
Yeah, I was practically born into it. My dad is my longest memories riding on him with back roads. Probably, you know, early elementary is my long as my memory goes back. But he says he was taking me in my car seat. I mean,
Oh,
his
geez.
old '89 Chevy truck, um, and his really good friends Trent Jackson and Kelly Jackson. Kelly's part of the Fox Pro crew.
Oh yeah, I
Were
remember
his
that. That name sounds familiar. So your dad's good friends with him then, or?
Oh yeah, they grew up together. They're from the
Oh,
same
really?
hometown, little
Cool.
small town, Temple, Oklahoma, in Southwest Oklahoma.
Okay.
So that was their thing, back in the early '90s, um, running around with those guys and dragging their coyotes out for them. And
Cool.
my dad was a big hand caller, and he still believes in it to this day. He probably wouldn't go with anybody that has an e-call. He's not about it. He likes the field craft, and so I learned. I used his calls for years, and I built my own calls up, and they're just the newer versions of his, the Ed Siri hand calls. And I do a lot of the hunts the same way he did too. It's kind of a run and gun. Go call a spot out of there in 15 minutes and go hit the next.
Right.
And that's my background in Southwest Oklahoma with it. And I've moved around to multiple states in my career here in the military, so that's forced me to learn new ways. And I think it's helped me become better, because every time you move somewhere, you got to learn new property and learn the ways of the animals there. Um, and it's tough, but it does. I think it's made me a better predator hunter. That's for sure.
So speaking of that, so is a coyote in Southwest Oklahoma or in Kansas or North Dakota? Do you have to hunt them differently? I mean, other than like the cover and the terrain's different in certain areas and stuff. I mean, do they respond the same, or what's the? I've never really talked to anybody about that because I don't necessarily talk to people that have hunted in lots of different states over the period of their career of hunting. Um, so I mean, do they react like up here in North Dakota? I mean, like when it's 30 below outside, you're calling coyotes in and they're hungry. I mean, they come in like you got a leash on them. I mean, they're like, okay, we're going to the dinner bell, right? Uh, and they always don't act like that, but it seems like when you get coyotes coming in like that, you're gonna have a good day. It's like I don't know if I got enough room in my pickup. I mean, I know I'm gonna have a good day when they're coming on a rope like that. But do coyotes do they react the same down there than they did up here when you were up here hunting?
I think they do. You just don't see them coming from the distance you do there,
Right.
day or night. Same goes for, say, New Mexico. I lived out there. There's sagebrush, and unless you're sitting up nice and elevated, the next thing you know, they're 50 yards in your face staring at you, and there's three or four together. Um, I I never really got into doing the howling sequences and stuff until I got to North Dakota. Um, starting out, especially if I hear, say, a big alpha, what am I going to do after that? Um, I only did hand calls until I got to North Dakota. I got up to North
Oh,
Dakota, and I felt like I was looking at 2 to 3 miles worth of vast prairie, and I wasn't reaching some of them that were way out there. And once I got my e-call, that's when I started using the mostly vocals. I was using it for vocals, and I was still using my hand call. Down here, I like to use straight rabbit. I go rabbit like I always have. And I noticed up there I was using other sounds. There's some other sounds I like to use up in the north that I haven't even had to use down here yet since I've been back home.
hmm. That's interesting. I've generally over the years have used just distress calls for the most part, and I think that early in the season, distress calls work really well, especially when the young of the year out there, because they're dumb. I mean, the small ones come in, the young ones come in, they're like, oh, what's that? And wham! It's pretty easy early on like that. But I've tried vocalizations, and I don't know if I don't understand the situation or if I don't know, the language as well as I think I do. But I mean, as a predator, I mean, you're always looking to eat, right? I mean, you got to eat, especially up here when it's 6 months of winter. I mean, you got to eat every day and or at least hunt for something every day. So I think distress calls is kind of what I've stuck with. But vocalizations, I think, are you see lots of people have a lot of success with them, and that's why I'm kind of like I wonder maybe they work differently in different states. Then maybe it's just the way it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I got a memory of a hunt. It was actually Trent Jackson actually called me. I was at my parents'. There was a light snow, and I worked over on Kimball Ranch in Southwest Oklahoma. It's huge. It's right around 20,000 acres, and with no roads through it. There's one road that
Oh,
splits the
nice.
center of highway, and it's contiguous through the rest. And
Oh, nice.
he was wanting to go call it. There was no wind, and there's big snowflakes like the size of you know quarters falling down, and he's like, let's go call the ranch. So we go up there and we could not stop. And this is at 9 or 10 in the morning. I think we killed 18 that day between me and him. But he brought out something I had never seen before. He said his brother gave him as a horn. It's just like the one I have now. And he put in an open reed in it and made a howler. And he mostly called that day. I was mostly just a shooter. And after I would shoot one, he would pull that horn out and go into pup distress. And I had never heard pup distress besides for a real one that was wounded,
Mhm.
barking. But he would go into ripping that, and we could not stop them coming back. And ever since then, he actually gave me a horn, and I still have it. I polished it up, and that's my. It's just kind of big and clunky, but that was my first introduction to vocals and how they can actually work. And ever since then, I've been trying to understand when to use what sound, and coming up there to the north, doing it at nighttime and just kind of talking back and forth with coyotes has been a really good experience and some of my favorite things to do now.
Yeah, that pup distress. That's something that. Well, that's interesting you say that because I have a Fox e-collar. It's an older one, but it has that point to where you shoot your gun. The caller recognizes that, and you can set up to play the pup distress right after that, and it's worked. I've used it before just with my hand calls before, and it's interesting that they might come back, but at least they're going to stop and give you a shot anyway. Like even if they're out there a couple hundred yards, they're at least going to stop and give you a shot, and that's all you're
Yeah.
asking for at that point.
I had the Shockwave. I've had a couple, and that thing, I would bump and you can set it on settings, but I'd bump it on my rifle. I'd bump it on something. It'd kick off on pup distress, and it did that to me a couple times, and I sold it. I moved on from that one. I couldn't handle it going off when I wasn't ready. I didn't feel like I was in control of the hunt sometimes, and I went to Lucky Duck, and Rick and those guys. They've been the best to me. My call broke. I text Rick, and he sent me one in 2 days. Just mailed it to me. Didn't even ask for anything. Didn't even want the broken one back. He just asked for my new address and shipped it up to me. So
That's
I'm
awesome.
gonna keep supporting those guys.
Yeah, I've heard some really good things about that call, and how I know that Brandon and Calvin use that quite a bit. I know they have kind of both. Like everybody, it seems like okay, maybe it's just me, but when I first started coyote hunting, of course I had to have every hand call out there, and I've said this before on previous episodes. I had to have every hand call because you're always like, maybe it's the hand call, or maybe I'm like, no, really, it's just because there's no coyotes there, right? So I.
Yeah,
I'm assuming that's the same thing with people in e-collars. Like, yeah, maybe I should just get this other one because I like this one, but boy, people are having luck with this other one. And but I, but I,
yeah, and you. I mean, they're all going to work, and
yeah,
I don't even like really advertising. I use them that much. I really do like saying that, and not just saying, but doing it. hunting and having a successful hunt with a hand call,
Yeah.
especially my old Ed Siri calls that I mark with. I used to mark how many coyotes I killed. Well, I started to scratch it up pretty bad, so
Oh,
I only
sure.
mark it with bobcats, and there's nothing better than the open reed Ed Siri and the Jackrabbit Cottontail that he makes, and those rubber barrels are my
Right.
favorite. And I have a call box that I got. It was after a hunt one time. I went to Hobby Lobby and got a nice little leather case and put some foam in it and cut all my calls out. And that's my call box. And I'm proud of it. I love it. Maybe I'll have a grandkid someday to pass it down to,
Yeah, that's kind of neat. I mean, that's kind of stuff that keeps going down and down and down the family, especially when it's something that's ingrained in the family, like predator hunting. And it sounds like you got quite the tradition in your family as far as predator hunting goes. That's great. I mean, I think that, taking predators nowadays is not something that's, everybody does anymore. And it's tough to get young kids into it. Up here where, you try to get young kids into trapping and coyote hunting and just like that. And it's just tough. So it's nice when, you keep handing stuff down, and it's kind of something that kids look forward to. It's like, well, I'm going to get grandpa's call box one day, I mean,
Yeah, my oldest daughter, she's not into it as much now. She's 15, and my youngest is 7, and she calls herself the Coyote hunter.
oh, really?
Her problem is just holding the rifle up. But being
Yeah,
back down here with her at this age, it's going to help us out with her just because of the weather.
sure.
When we first moved to North Dakota from coming from overseas, Brooklyn was she was young, she was wanting to do it, but it was so dang cold. And they went with me a couple of times. Brooklyn used to hold my red light for me. We went at
Oh,
night.
really?
She was my light my light runner, and I
Wow.
would shoot them. But that's what she liked to do. She didn't even really want to run the rifle. Aubrey right now is she's out to get one this year and a deer. So
Oh, cool.
I think the weather helps a little bit with getting the young ones into it. I think.
Well, you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to worry about. I mean, it's enough to worry about holding a gun and handling firearms safely and pointing a gun at something to shoot it and kill it. But yet, when you're dealing with like cold and wind and snow, and I mean, it's easier for people to get into it that aren't very seasoned yet to get into like the meat and potatoes of hunting, not the staying warm and right away. I mean, of course, that if you want to continue doing that, that's something that you learn kind of just over a period of years. But yeah, it's a little bit easier. I could see where it's be easier for that. I really
Yeah,
could.
you're trying to survive up there at a certain point.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you are.
Yeah, it was. I think it was Black Friday one year I was up there, and my wife wanted to go town to go shopping, and I was like, well. If I can take my rifle and make one call stop on the way back from town, I'll go. Made one of those deals, and she she packed all the girls' uh, warm gear, and we pulled over at one of my spots, just not very far outside of Minot, and we called, and we had success. But the pictures are hilarious because everybody almost had snot ice on their face, and it's a good memory, but it was painful for all of us. I was even cold. So
Yeah, I've been on some cold nights and cold days, but it's just fun being out and doing. I mean, especially when there's a lot of coyotes around, and there's been a lot of competition now. Now it's not so much. I mean, with the market so bad for coyotes, last year there wasn't. I don't know what the percentage was. There's not nearly the people out chasing coyotes anymore. And this year, I think that people are they're back out doing it to say, you know what, I'm gonna go out and do it, because there's been a lot of people hunting in the whole month of October, and of course they're not hunting for fur because the fur in October is not the best, but they're out having a bunch of fun and killing a lot of coyotes. And I think now, since the whole market thing is all done with, as far as the high prices and people are trying to get as many as they could, and not everybody was into it for that, but a lot of the people were, and now there was a lot of competition up here, and now it's kind of settled down a little bit. So hopefully it's a little bit easier to get a couple extra than it was a couple years ago. But
yeah, I remember killing 2 from base to Minot just to sell them to you back when the fur was good.
yeah,
I made a couple sets on that short 13-mile trip to Cinex, and
as I remember, they were steaming. I think by the time they were still steaming.
I think I shot them like 12 minutes prior to me bringing them to you. Yeah,
I think you got a couple frozen ones, and then you're like, they got these on the way into town.
yeah. That was when the market was good. Yeah,
Well, those are the good old days, and they weren't very old. The days weren't very far away, but there was the good old days. I mean, that was ridiculous. I remember, when I first started to buy, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, so I did it kind of slowly, and then I'm like, you know what? at the Senex there, I called up them. I said, hey, can I stop there every Wednesday night and buy fur? And I, no problem, whatever. And I got there, and the word started getting out more and more and more. And you know, you're there, and all of a sudden there'd be lines of people just waiting there for like an hour and a half with coyotes on the parking lot. I mean, and I'm thinking, like, what are these guys thinking that are driving in just to get gas or get a coffee? And there's all these guys in the south side of this parking lot with all these carcass coyotes laying all over. There's blood dripping out of pickup boxes, and it's like,
Oh yeah.
oh, I mean, it was. I'm glad I was a part of that because it was fun. I mean, I met a lot of good people and still talk to a lot of people, so it was a good time. But it was crazy times there. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah. I It's something like I'll probably never experience again, you know. And
Yeah.
I was deployed and I used to have a box. I used to hang them up and until you were ready to come down. And I had to head overseas, and I had a pretty good pile level. I want to say it was close to 20. You know, some were blown up, and my wife, golly, she was so good. She had those in the truck and took them down and sold them to you with my girls.
I
And
remember
laid them
that.
out. Yeah.
I remember that. And she's like, here you go. Joe's away. And I'm like, okay, whatever. As I don't know if you mentioned something to me or whatever. And I remember she had him in the back of the pickup, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what did you do to her?
Yeah. It's like, we need to sell these as prime right now. You know?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And she's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was people that would come from like a ways away to like sell like one or two critters, and I'm like, and it's just fine, but
Yeah.
it was like, geez, you could have found somebody a little closer. I mean, you spent more on gas, but when people hear about high fur market, they're like, I gotta get as much fur as I can, and they do whatever it takes to to sell them. But yeah, those were some good times, and I hope we can see it sometime again because it was fun, but it was a lot of work and a lot of hours spent out in the field and doing everything for many years in a row. And it got to be kind of, I have to be honest with everybody. Last year I didn't buy too many coyotes last year. I bought enough that I could have on hand for sowing and stuff this year. So I didn't kill myself last year skinning coyotes and putting them up, but it was kind of nice to like not have to go out every week and buy 75 coyotes and 100 whatever it was, and then go back home and pile them up and then look at them like, oh my gosh, look at all the work I got to do. And then the next day people call and say, yeah, I got 10 coyotes, I missed you last night, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, where do you want to meet at? It was kind of nice to have a little break. And I talked to somebody else too here a while ago about how, because I asked them, I said, as far as a person that's either a predator hunter, coyote hunter, or trapper, and when the years were really good, the only thing that was in your mind, I think, was like, how many more can I get, or how much more time can I spend to go out and get some more? And it wears on a guy after a while, because like I know some of you guys that did a lot of night hunting. I mean, you guys were out like every night of the week during prime time.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about no sleep and running all over the place. It was cold outside, and I mean that's quite a bit. That's quite a bit of dedication. I mean, you must love what you do to be able to do something like, no matter what it is, to put in that much time. But there's a lot of guys running all over the place, and I think maybe the last year, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I can about imagine people maybe kind of let out a sigh of relief, like, oh, I don't have to go out tonight. Not that they had to, but I'm not going to go out tonight and shoot 10 coyotes because, first of all, I'm not going to get anything for them, and it's 20 below outside, so I think I'm going to stay inside.
No, I agree. I worked on base, and I worked 12-hour shifts. We worked crazy hours. They weren't even 12-hour shifts. They were more like 14, 15-hour shifts. And I'd get home at 6:30 in the morning. It didn't get daylight in the winter until 8. But I'd be eating a bowl of cereal, and I would hear hear them howling right there north of base, and I would be exhausted. I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to go make a set, and I go right north of base, a mile north of base, and right at blue light, kill a triple.
Huh.
And I was addicted to it.
Yeah.
And it was partially because some of the work I was doing wasn't very satisfying, and
Yeah.
I just was craving it. And I see a lot of, people, I'm feeling they can say the same thing. They can't stop going. And
Yeah.
it's and we talk about the slow down. I moved down here and I slowed down. I didn't go as half as much as I did up there. This last season, I killed 167.
Oh, jeez.
But it was still a break from going and just grinding and driving from Minot to Bismarck, just hitting all my places up, in one day and having to drive back. And
Yeah.
but I do miss it, that's for sure. And I'm starting to chomp at the bit to get going. That's why I said I'm heading up there within the next 6-8 weeks to hit it hard again up there. That's for
That'll
sure.
be fun. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
So, I asked you coyote hunters, I look for different point of views and the ways to get people into this coyote hunting. And, as a person that wants to get into coyote hunting, I mean, what's a good, we don't need to go into detail on it, but what's your advice to somebody that's wants to get into starting to learn how to coyote hunt? I mean, of course, you look for some people that have done it already, but what do you think would be the easiest way if you were starting out tomorrow and said, you know what, I'm waking up on a Saturday morning, I'm gonna go try to find out information on how to coyote hunt? Of course, there's a lot of online stuff, but how would you go about getting into coyote hunting and getting into that whole predator hunting thing?
Well, Onyx is the way to go nowadays. Whenever I was younger, like I said, I grew up into it, so I never truly had to be like, oh, I need to go learn something new. I'm kind of gaining on my own experiences,
Right.
But moving from state to state, like I said earlier, has been a challenge. So for me, moving back down here to Kansas and knocking on doors again. And that was the first thing I didn't do in North Dakota, was knock on doors like I was told to. That first season was rough for me. Knock on doors and plot locations, and you just got to go. And for the new people getting into it, everybody wants super success now. Social media, just like anything, everybody wants that gratification right now. They want to have 20 in the back of their truck for that picture.
Yeah.
And being realistic, that's not going to happen. It could, but most likely they're going to have some rough times. And I have gotten a lot of friends into it. A lot of my really good friends now have been hunting for a few years. You met a few of them that really weren't, didn't grow up in the hunting family type like I did. They never predator hunted. They went with me a few times, and the times they went alone, they were striking out. They were having a rough time, and that's just part of it. It's to just not give up, because those guys, a couple years after doing it in North Dakota, their last few years there, where we're killing 50, 60 a season, with going minimal times. And that's the main thing, is just being consistent and learning the field craft. If you think you're going to buy an e-call and go out there and turn a button on, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. It's not going to work.
I agree.
You might get one to come in every now and then, but if you, I recommend getting hand calls. I have, to everybody that's asked me tips and tricks, what do I need to do? I've been hunting for a year or two and I've only killed one, where I've called them in and they keep smelling me. I'm like, hey, it's field craft. And how many times have you honestly gone? And, they tell me they've gone 4 times. And I'm like, guy, I go 15 times, 15 sets in a day, maybe more. If it's nighttime, I might hit 20, 30 sets in a night. And I kind of just get the blank look, they're like, oh, well, I don't know how you do it. I'm like, well, that's how you're going to get success, is by going. And that goes with anything in life. You got to be persistent, and that pays off in the end.
I know you're exactly right, because when I first started calling coyotes, and I'll admit it, I mean, I had my wife's uncle got me into it, and a little bit when I first started up, and we hunted deer and everything, but we never really hunted coyotes, and he took me out one time, and I had a 7mm. That's all I had as a rifle as a young kid. That was my deer rifle, and I had brown Carhartts on, and now I know that it really doesn't matter. You could go out there in a bright pink jumpsuit and they wouldn't care. But at the time, I thought, you stick out like a sore thumb. Anyway, the first time he called in a coyote, I was like, this is great, and I was hooked. Right, even though I didn't really shoot, I was like, this is pretty cool. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start doing this. So bought myself a proper gun and got all these hand calls. And you know what? I couldn't call in a coyote to save my soul. And it, like you said, it's a consistent thing. I mean, you just have to keep doing it because there's a lot of coyotes out there, but they're not everywhere. Like they're not every location you're at, right? I mean, there's certain areas where like, and I found this out as being a trapper. Like, um, there's certain areas where there should be coyotes. Like you think there should be coyotes. You just know there should be coyotes there, but they're not there, and for whatever reason. And I think it's the same thing with your calling coyotes. The same deal. Like there's a lot of coyotes out there, but like you said, you could go turn your call off. Go out in the middle of somewhere, turn your call on. Not knowing anything, and you might get lucky, and a coyote's cruising through, and you call in and you kill it, right? But
Yeah.
like you said, being consistent and just going out and kind of narrowing down, keep track of the places. This is what I kind of do. Keep track of the places of the type of places that you're finding these coyotes. And all of a sudden you're like, well, I've been going about this all wrong. So when I started doing that, I was doing it all backwards. And when I kind of started to figure it out, then my brother and our cousin got into it a little bit. And they came to me one day and they're like, what calls are you using or this or that? And I'm like, well, just this. Like, well, we can't call one. They call all these spots and all these spots. And they could never call anything in. And then all of a sudden, one day, like my brother, he kills a ton of coyotes a year. He just knows where they're at. He knows where to go. And it's just a matter of doing it and grinding out and finding where those spots are. And that's important, I think.
Yeah. My first year, so I got to Minot in December of 18. So I didn't even hunt then. We lost all of our households. So that's end of the winter and spring. Didn't even pull my rifles out. But I had drove around the whole summer, kind of finding some places, and it's just kind of a personal thing. I don't call until September 1st. Down here, it's usually October because it's hot. But even up there, I wait till I give them a chance,
Yeah.
And I was super confident. I haven't really called in 3 years. I was in Germany, and I get up there and I struck out like no other. I killed 5 that whole season.
Oh,
And
geez.
I'm not, but I was not using Onyx and stuff. I was knocking on some doors, and I think I was hunting other places other people were calling to, but I remember getting out in the snow, and I remember calling them and then just getting winded. I'm on hand calls only, and it was a big punch in the gut for me. That was something that's what gave me the drive after that. Cause I think the next season I was up over 100 the next season later, just based off of, learning the areas. And, I pay a lot of attention to weather. My wife told me I was a weatherman when I lived up there. And, during coyote season, I wake up in the morning. First thing I do is check the winds and the moon phase. The moon phase paid a lot.
Yeah.
Up there, I like no moon, especially at night. So December 9th is when I'll be up there.
Yeah. So the new moon, when it's a new moon, that's when the killing is the best, isn't it?
It is. It is. Every year, that first week of December for me has been, kill quads, kill quads all night. It seems like, and that same thing down here because Brandon just came down to visit a couple weeks ago, and he brought his rifles and stuff, and it was hot. It was like, hey, I got some spots, that some good day sets, and let's just go drive back roads. And we struck out. It doesn't matter how good you are; you're going to have those days. Yeah. And it just happened to be on the full moon nights. I've never really done good on day or night, unless you're just really right on them. And now, granted, we were hunting some public properties that might have been called already, and a lot comes into play. And the weather has been a big factor for me and everybody else I know that's real successful.
Well, we got this storm coming in like Tuesday night. We're going to get some snow and stuff. And based on past experiences, whether you're deer hunting, bird hunting, coyote hunting, a person should be in the field the next 3 days hunting your tail off, because I'm sure you're going to be able to see a ton of coyotes out there. And it seems like before those fronts come through sometimes, boy, it can be really good.
Yeah, exactly. It's like tournaments. That's why tournaments never fails. It's windy, or it's really nasty, and it's just kind of hard to get them to come in. And those fronts, if it lands just like that, that's whenever I'll go to those tournaments and put the big money down for buy my team. And I got a good chance, but other people do too. So that's everybody else has got it going for them.
So let's stay on the coyote thing for a little bit more, and then we'll get into what you kind of do as a side business thing to end out this episode. But I know that right before you left Minot, that you're starting to help people get into coyote hunting a little bit on base there, and I saw a couple things on your social media and stuff. And how was the turnout for something like that? Were people pretty eager to learn how to coyote hunt and all that kind of stuff? Or
Oh, absolutely. And it's been that way pretty much my entire life that I can remember. And being honest, I'm pretty stingy with it. I'm I'm a loner. I do like to go by myself. That's kind of my way of, just getting away. And I, I like the silence sometimes. And
your therapy session, it's your therapy, right? You get away and you
it
coyote
really
hunt.
is.
Yeah.
It really is. And I crave it. And it's not just crave the kill. I crave the hunt. I like to drive the back roads by myself sometimes. And it's been that way forever. And I started to realize, it's not always about me. And I have a lot of people asking, and a lot of people want to go with me. And, I've taken some people over time. And I was like, you know what? Why don't I just start helping others learn to go? And instead of just texting on the phone, I put on some classes there in North Dakota, and it had a really good turnout. I was really surprised. I would, say 20 people's allowed to come, and gosh dang it, we'd have 35 people trying to get in the door.
Oh wow.
To go, and I had some people say, I think that you probably gave yourself competition, and I might have immediately around the areas, but I had so many places to go up there that I don't even hit them all in one season.
Yeah.
I just kind of, and it's kind of crazy that people told me that, because I think you're probably going to shoot less because you're getting more people out. I killed more. So
Yeah.
it got even better. And so, I started at Coyote College. Knox's Coyote College is what I called it, I think. And the base sponsored it and put it on. We had it on base there, and it was open to civilians or military. And
that was pretty cool.
I was going to get with Rob at Spartans. He's always been really good to me. He sells my knives for me. And I just kind of got busy there towards the end to put classes onto his place. And hell, I might do it in the future. It's kind of something I enjoy doing it. I had a nice slideshow I put up, and everybody brought hand calls, and I even provided calls. Everybody that showed up, I bought them a call, and
neat.
Did some hand calling class, and and I showed them my electronic calls, but kind of got into that fieldcraft we were talking about earlier. And, I showed them how I knock on doors. I even talked to them how I talk to people. Knock on their door.
That's important, though. I mean, you don't see a lot, especially in the hunting community. And I commend you for this, Joe, because a lot of people in the hunting community, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but a lot of people, like you said, you're kind of a loner. You kind of like to hunt by yourself, and people don't like to share a lot of information just because, like you said, you might say, you can get more competition or this or that. And I'm like, yeah, but an industry that a person loves and puts your blood and sweat into, it's only as good as however many other people can be in it, because you need more people, you need new people into it to keep it going. And I think that's important what you did. I mean, you gave back to, you didn't have to do that, but you gave back to people, and because you really enjoy it, and people are asking like, well, why not do it? And I think that's really good. I mean, you don't see a lot of sportsmen doing that as much as you'd like to see. And maybe it's just and it's not on purpose. It's probably just people are in the zone during the season, and that's just what they do. They kind of block everything out and just go ahead with their, whether they trap or hunt deer or bow hunt or whatever, predator hunt or coyote hunt. They just go do it, and they don't really think about giving everybody else some info. So that was kind of cool. When I saw you posted that there a year ago or so, a couple years ago, I thought that was pretty cool. That was kind of neat.
And I get asked a lot about equipment. People mess with me, what type of scopes you using, and all my stuff. And it got to where I was like, and a lot of them were locals to up there, and I was like, why don't I just bring everything I got and put it on tables, and y'all can look at it and play with it. And here's a good time to answer a lot of y'all's questions in person. And just, we can all talk about it. And I might be able to learn something from some other people too. And and every time I did it, I would actually go hunt the day prior or the night prior and have a truckload of them just parked right up front of the building, tailgate down, just for people to come look at, like, hey, this guy that's talking isn't just just pulling it out of nothing. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And those are good times. I miss it, and I might try to do something like that down here too. We'll see what the future has.
Cool. So let's transition off the coyote thing, and let's go into your knife making. So I didn't know this at the time when I first met you, and then after a while, you start, we talk about how you're making these knives and stuff and that, and I ended up with one of your knives, and I used it here this last fall to skin out my deer and stuff. And I'll tell you what, it was great, and it's all ready for this season. But give us a little background into your Knox blades business that you have.
Oh, yeah. I think I started about 2011. I got into just making holsters. Somebody showed me what Kydex was, and I wanted a holster for one of my guns, and then I made some for my Leatherman and some other pocket knives I had. And I was like, well, why don't I just make a knife? So I bought a pre-made blade, probably from India. Don't even know where it was from, and put a deer horn on it. Then I was like, you know what? Why don't I? And I gave that to my dad, and I was like, why don't I make my own blade? And I used an angle grinder and made a blade and gave that to my dad. And I was like, you know what? I think I might be able to do something with this. And I made a couple more, and a couple buddies picked them up from me, and it just took off from there. I've never been able to stop. It's 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 been great, really. Heck, I have yet to been able to hold a stock of them, and I make several hundred a year. And went to Germany, and it slowed down there for a couple of years. Our ops tempo was really high. I was out the door quite a bit, TDYs and deployment stuff, and so it slowed down. And as soon as I got to North Dakota, like you said, sleep and hunting and all that, and I don't know where I found the time, but being up there, that my business blew up big time. The locals supported it so much. I went to the gun show there in Minot my first year, and I think I took close to 30 knives, and they were sold out within a few hours of the doors opening.
Oh,
and
wow.
and ever since I that's where I've met I met Jarrett Schatz. He's been a great customer and spreading the word. I met him there, and some other people. Rob Fuller, I give him big big pat on the back for helping me out. See, people you meet up there, everybody, it's a little different. So down here, I mostly sell offline. I post stuff on Instagram and stuff. But
Right.
yeah, where it all started though was trying to get I wanted a really good knife that wasn't your typical go to the store and spend 80, $100 on something that's mass produced, and it's something that's a little nicer, and it's one of a kind, one off. And what I found is it's expensive to make them. Tools and materials. And then 2020 happened; it got even worse. But I'm sticking with my guns on. They're still expensive. You bought one, and but I want to be able for the working man to actually afford them. You can save up for a while, and I do
Yeah.
the custom orders where you can put money down, and I'm trying my best to not hike up prices to even stay with my main competitors that are charging way more. But I really like that. I like for people to get my tools that I make, and the pictures I get back, of their family, their first deer kill with their kid. They're using one of my knives. It's just that's been the driving factor for me, because initially I was just trying to make a nice tool, and now it's turned into my retirement job. I'm going to do this full time the next couple of years, and I hoping that it pans out the way I got it planned, and if I keep at it, I think it will.
That's pretty sweet. I'll tell you what, everybody that's listening to this episode, I'm like, I got that knife. It's called the Fang, I think, and I had it with me, and I never had a chance to use it until like a year or so after I got it. I was waiting for that special situation, and last deer season, I was driving along next to some of the land that we hunt that my family owns, and got out, shot a really nice buck. In fact, I'm waiting for it to come back from the taxidermist. I think it was like 154 inches or something. It was a really nice deer. And I'm like, guess what? I get to use my Knox blade Fang. And I'll tell you what, I've never used such a nice knife. I mean, and I'm just not saying that because I got you on the episode, Joe. Like, this knife was like exactly what you need when you're gutting out a deer, when you're skinning a deer. I mean, the handle was perfect. The blade was perfect. I mean, it washes up great. I mean, it's definitely, the craftsmanship on that knife is the best that I've ever seen. And I'm not like a knife guru, but I like knives. But I'm not like a big time knife guru, but I can tell when it's a good knife. And I can't wait to get my next one. I got something in mind that I'm gonna have to talk to you about, later on. But it was a great knife.
No, I appreciate it. That's the stories I like to hear. It's that driving factor, and you know, the a lot of the stuff you've seen some of my little short clips I put on my Instagram page of using my knife stuff and that credibility. That being a true outdoorsman, actually using my knives and testing them in the field, not just making one and saying this will skin an elk, this will skin a deer. Um, I've got true tests behind all my blades, and that's when I come out with a new design. I'll post a picture of it, and people they'll hit me up for a year, sometimes 2 years, asking when that model's coming out. And I actually put it through its full paces. I might give one away to a friend, or I might sell one or two, but they go through a full test, and then they get modified before I actually release them out for the normal public to buy. And I think that's been a good thing for me is people understanding the guy behind the scenes actually does the things. He's not just making 1,000 knives a year and saying they work. If they don't work, I'll say they won't work, and I'll quit making them. Like gut hooks, I stopped making gut hook knives. I don't use a gut hook, so why am I going to say that they work well? I don't need it, and I just tell people I'm sorry I don't make them anymore because I won't truly test them.
Gut hook. I got a love hate relationship with gut hook knives. Like, I like them, but I don't like them. Like, they're hard to. They're like hard to use, but the concept's good, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I end up cutting the stomach open, like that. I don't want to cut the stomach open. I want to just cut the skin off, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting you said that about gut hook knives because I'm like, it seems like it'd be a good concept, but I could never get them to work properly. Is that what you kind of experienced with those, or?
Yeah. Yeah. And the one I made, mine was real shallow, it was small, and I designed it for bobcat and coyotes' first cuts down the inside of their legs, and that's what I designed them for. I didn't want too big of an open hole that would cut, you know, too deep, and I wanted it to be usable for a daily carry as well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I designed it for. I used it. A lot of those that I sold you that were skint in my early days of selling them to you.
Yeah.
I was testing it on that, and I sold quite a few. I probably sold, I don't know, close to 100 of them.
Yeah.
And people were hitting me up wanting me to resharpen them. And I have a special tool that grinding belt that can sharpen them, and I just didn't even like resharpening them. I didn't like to sharpen mine. I was like, this is just, it's not very effective for me or anybody else. And I was like, I don't think you used a hook to do your first cuts on a coyote or anything that you're skinning. So why do I even need to make them anymore? So I just quit and focus more on chef knives and whatnot that everybody's actually using daily basis stuff,
Yeah. So what kind of, like, that's a good question. What's your most popular model that you make? I mean,
golly.
Generally speaking, are people using them like in the kitchen? Or are they using them out in the field or
it's whatever I'm posting for sale.
Oh, sure.
But chef knives, I at one time I had a 3-year wait list on chef knives. I mean, everybody uses chef knives daily. Everybody's spouses use chef knives. They're using the kitchen the most, and that's probably what I should focus more on. But I go in batches of just whatever I'm working on. Like right now, I'm trying to keep up with the hunting season. People that's wanting the fang, and then I have a game warden as kind of your, you can use them for anything, but mostly your big processing type knife. If you're going to take care of a deer in the field from gut to bone. But I have people buying my fillet knives. They're doing it with the same thing with fillet knives. Using them out in the field. And I got one too. I make them a little stiffer sometimes for that. And those are getting more popular. And it depends on how I advertise it. I go on my hunts and I'll post, use this, and this. And like I said earlier, the credibility, a lot of people trust what I say. And a lot of times they'll hit me up and say, this is what I do for a living. And we kind of get to chatting, and this is what they would use it for. And I kind of give them, a little bit of advice on what I would buy if I was in their shoes. And, but all of them, I carried a rhino for 7 years, and I've skinned, I don't know, probably several hundred coyotes with it and deer, and the same dang knife that I used to, with it clean, cut my kids' straws and open the mail with. So it's just, at the end of the day, it's just a knife, and it comes down to the craftsmanship behind it that makes them, last a long time and durable.
So is the rhino, that's a little smaller blade than the game warden, right?
It is. It's kind of more of your typical drop point.
Right. Okay.
style knife. It sheathes easy, goes in and out of the sheath, and it's kind of my favorite just for just daily carry. Your Fang has that really pokey point,
Yeah.
and I've cut myself with mine multiple times just because the upsweep on it, you won't
Yep.
realize it's there, and even opening the mail with it, you'll touch your finger to it, and it's game over after that. And um, in the point, sometimes with it you can poke something you don't want to, but the Rhino's kind of got that drop point and a
Yeah.
little safer to use for daily stuff. I would say.
Yeah, I think my plan's always been to get a matching knife of that Fang and a Rhino. I think someday I'll be talking with you and see, because those are, I like a shorter blade, but I want something that's not like so upswept like that Fang. Like you could cut your finger off in 2 seconds if you're not
Oh,
careful.
absolutely will. I think I posted pictures of mine. It's not even making them. It's not even making them when I do it. It's like I said, I'm
Oh
cutting the
man.
straw off. I'm like, whoops, there goes a knuckle.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's really cool with your knife. I mean, so you think that's going to turn into your career after you retire from the military, huh?
Yeah, I think. Well, being in the military's helped me too, because just the amount of people I'm in contact with daily, squadrons. My squadron, and then our other units that we're stationed with. That people get involved with spreading the word,
Yeah.
and hundreds, if not thousands, of people know about it and follow my pages. And uh, if I can keep it going when I retire to go to bases and still kind of pitch these things the way I've been selling them, I think it'll be okay. I think I can make it work. Shields has offered to sell them for me, and
Oh, nice.
just you got to pay people. You got to pay them your stuff. Like again, I brought up Spartan. Spartans charges me a minimal fee. It covers taxes pretty much, and um, I would love to keep a spot up there in his shop and sell them there in the future, and just keep on sending them to him.
He's got a really good business up there, doesn't he? I mean, he does a really good job. I've never heard anything bad come out of that business.
Absolutely, he's been great to me. Like I
Yeah.
said earlier, he was one of the first people that I actually met in the town before his store there, and I'll always be a customer, and I'll always stop in to see him when I'm there. That's for sure. So
Yeah.
if
No.
Rob's listening, appreciate it, bud.
Yeah. No. He's got some family roots up here in Sherwood, so yeah, I've heard nothing but good out of his business down there. But yeah, that sounds good. So what is it? knoxblades.com? Is that your website?
Yes, it is. A lot of people will look up Knox knives. I have. It's not quite an imposter, but somebody started that
Uh-oh.
years after I had mine, and there's a Knox knives website that's not me. It's pretty obvious when you click mine, knoxblades.com. You can find me. My website I update as often as I can. I'm a one stop shop here. So
Yeah.
mostly Facebook and Instagram. As much as I hate it and I'm blocked from it, that's the most updates on pictures and stuff of what I
Sure.
make is
Yeah.
going to be on those things. Just because I'll operate off my phone and do
Yeah.
everything here. But that's going to grow. The website will grow and continue on with knoxblades.com.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll definitely vouch for your knives, and I'm hoping to own another one of these days. They're great, and anybody's looking for a knife that can do everything. I mean, talk to Joe and say, hey, this is what I want, and he might have a knife for you. So, but I think that's a good stepping off point here for this episode, Joe. I really appreciate you coming on. I like to talk coyote hunting. I like to talk about anything, and it's been a good one.
Yeah, thanks again. It's like I said, I enjoy talking to anybody about this stuff, and especially old buddies. And uh, I hope that your little business prospers too. I've got some stuff that I want to get from you soon. We talked about rabbit hats and
Yeah.
stuff, and I'll do that when I come up there. Hopefully, we can link together. Like I said,
Yeah.
we can chat some more on some of that stuff and some business trades maybe.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, Joe. Okay, everybody. Joe Knox with Knox Blades. We talked some coyote hunting, talked some knives, I should say. He's a really good guy, a lot of knowledge about coyotes. So, need a knife, knoxblades.com. A little bit about what's going on in my neck of the woods. Been in the garage a lot, fur shed, sewing lots of stuff. I've recently became a member for you North Dakota people. I've been recently become a member of Pride of Dakota, which is small businesses that make things in North Dakota. So anybody that's around the Minot area next weekend, I will be at the Pride of Dakota Minot Showcase with all the that showcases all the small businesses that are part of Pride of Dakota. I also have recently signed up with shopnd.com. It's a marketplace for small business owners in North Dakota to list your products for sale. So I'm also on there. I've been on Etsy now for coming up on a year here, probably December 1st. So you can check out some stuff on there. My website has all my contact information. I do custom sewing. I got products usually in inventory. So if you're looking for something, give me a call, send me a message on Facebook or Instagram or email. So I'm pretty flexible, but that's all I got for tonight. Until next time, take care. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the most recent episode of the Volkfers podcast. If you have any questions or comments, suggestions, please email me at info@volkfers.com. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook, or you can contact me via my website at volkfers.com.